Have you ever doubted how you can make beautiful things out of Dollar Tree supplies? If so, I'm hoping today's video will change your mind. And if you already have faith in Dollar Tree crafting supplies, I think you'll enjoy these ideas as well. In this episode, I'm going to show you the steps to create two beautiful Valentine's Day projects I'm sure that you'll love. So let's get started with idea number one. For this Valentine's Day project, I have one of these heart cutout wood frames from the Dollar Tree. And take this out. All right, so now we're left with this pretty wood frame. I'm going to use the Waverly Antique Wax in the brown color, and we'll get started staining. This is a water-based product that I have used on many different projects. Sometimes I use it directly as stain. Other times I'll layer it over a paint color to do an antiquing effect. It's very easy. Just apply it like you would stain or a paint wash, and then we'll just wipe back the excess product. I just really love the tone of the Waverly brand. All right, I believe I have enough product on here that I can go ahead and take the baby wipe and I can just move it around and wipe it back. And then some ends up on my rag, and that gets the other parts that my brush didn't directly touch. Okay, I am going to work a little more detailed around the edges here and around the inside of the heart, and then we'll come back and we'll do the next step. Okay, I'm to a point where I went ahead and actually stained the back too because I had some extra product. And here's another thing that you can use this wax for. You can almost build it up and layer it to add extra depth. So I can take the same color and I can kind of drag it along the outline of the frame, the heart design here, and add a little extra dimension that's going to help give some shading and depth to our heart. So I don't know if you can see the difference there, but you can actually let this stuff kind of layer on top of each other, and that just creates a darkness there. So I like that, and I can do the same thing around the edges. You can also choose a darker color. If you were working with white, this would be really pretty because that'd be a big contrast. If you painted your frame white or pink or red, you could use the brown antique wax around the edges. But I also love the tone on tone, the brown, the neutral, because I know that I can layer it to create the variations of the brown color. I'm loving the way this is looking, and we're going to set it to the side and let it dry and move on to what we're going to actually frame on this. Okay, the next step will be to use this part of the packaging. It's just a hard cardstock that came out of the frame and a pencil. And then I printed this out on white cardstock. This is a printable design of mine. I'm going to focus on this "You Are Loved" part. By the time it gets framed inside there, this is going to be the perfect size. So I'm going to center that because the design is centered. I'm going to trace it. Pencil. If you're interested in finding some cute printables for your crafting and decorating, you can head to the description of this video and you'll find out how to get your hands on some Hammond's Nest printables. I have all kinds for every season, a whole library full. So now I'm just carefully cutting out this heart. It's going to look so pretty in that frame. It's the heart. I've turned the frame upside down. So cardstock here, and then the extra thick cardstock just to give it some extra stability. We'll place that down. Look how pretty that looks. For the embellishments, I have a couple pieces of greenery and florals here. Neutral, because we got that little pop of pink happening that's very subtle. And then a couple different fabrics we're going to do to make a little rag bow. I'm going to make a bow I lovingly call the hummingbird. For my hummingbird bow, I'm going to use 2 ripped pieces of this brown plaid, 2 ripped pieces of this muslin Osnaburg, and they're all 8 inches long, and that should just make a sweet little hummingbird bow. So to do that, you want to fold your fabric halfway down. You're going to be tying in the center. If your fabric is not the same as it is on side A or side B, you'll want to make sure that you're looking at the bow while you're building it. So then I'm going to take the other piece, or you could do it with all the same fabric, but I'm just using some coordinating colors. And the hummingbird bow, and you can see that in the video if you go watch it, I'm making some Christmas style ones, but you make sure your loops and your tails are just going different directions for a nice little messy fabric bow look. So now you've got tails going that way. I'm going to fold this last piece. It's very simple to make once you make a few of them. So there's no rules on whether your tails or your loops all need to go the same direction. Just a great way to use up scrap fabric. So I take a little piece of jute string here and give that a nice tie in the center. Clip off that extra rope on the back so we won't need that. All right, and before I glue anything in place, I'm going to lay all of my embellishments out to see how I like them. So I'm thinking I really like this natural pick here. Pluck a few pieces off that. Then I have this nice green berry bush that I'd like to bring in. I picked this up at Hobby Lobby, but I am pretty sure they do not sell it anymore. Maybe one day, if somebody's watching this video, they can say, yes, they sell it again. That would make a lot of crafters happy. All right, so then I'll just kind of lay out where I'm thinking I want these embellishments and which direction I want them to go. And I'm loving that. I don't want to cover up the words. So I know it'll go right down here in the corner, and that is very pretty to me. I might even put some green. So I'm almost going to kind of create a little swag right here and then adorn the middle with the bow. This little heart, I'm going to go ahead and put this on there so it could be drying. I'm going to take some of that leftover decor wax. I'm going to rub it on this little tiny wood heart. And that'll be perfect in the center of the bow. So now we'll take our glue gun here and we'll just get some of these greenery pieces, start placing those down. I love the way this kind of goes up at the top there. So pretty. It kind of frames out this side of the heart there. Let's see, I think I might put a little piece of greenery going the other way, just like I said, to create that sort of a swag effect. I can always add more, even after I glue the bow on. Okay, then a couple of these pieces sticking up like that. And then one of these pieces sticking down like that. And now that fabric bow, hummingbird bow that we created, is going to be the perfect centerpiece to our little florals here. I'm probably going to go ahead and just kind of trim this up right here. Just a little bit. That is going to be so cute. Perfect. We still have some hot glue happening, but I'm going to put a little bit more. It's going to hold everything in place quite nicely. And as a final touch, we'll take that little heart and nestle it right there in the center of our fabric bow. And I love this so much. So as you can tell, these beautiful little floral picks, this has like a hint of a beigey pink, which ties into the background here. Our Osterberg muslin ties into the creamy whites there. And then our brown complements the stain. I love it so much. Isn't this the sweetest piece of decor? I can't wait to display it for the Valentine season. So many different things you can do with this heart frame from the Dollar Tree. All right, idea number 2 coming your way. For this project, our main supplies are this jumbo craft styrofoam heart from Dollar Tree and some yarn of your choice. I picked this almond color cotton knit by Yarn Bee up in the clearance section, but anything similar like this should work. The other main supply you'll need for this idea is hot glue and maybe a hot glue protective tool. I love the shape and the size of this heart. It's going to be so pretty wrapped in the yarn. And I have done many yarn wrapped crafts, and I suggest with things like this, I like to start in the middle. I like to start back here, assuming that you'll be able to see the front and the back. I want to make it all look nice. To find a starting point, if your hot glue is like really hot, you may have some issues with it melting the styrofoam. Just be aware of that. So if you have a hot glue gun, I'd suggest turning it down to low temp. Or if you know that your hot doesn't get too hot, and that will work. The most important part is to get this started nice. So I'm going to try to keep it going down the center in a nice straight line. You can use your finger or a hot glue tool to help you make that adhesion. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep gluing and wrapping until I have the whole right side done. I'm going to do that in fast mode, and we're going to come back and I'm going to show you how I close off the sides of this to make it look nice, and then we'll repeat that for the other side. All right, let's take a break and talk about what you've seen so far. You need to, when you drag your next line up for your hot glue like this, you need to get it almost as close to the other line of yarn as you can without touching it, or you'll end up with a glue mess. And then you pull it tight, letting it touch each other, and then that glue is grabbing the middle of your yarn. So depending on how thick your yarn is, you may can get away with a thicker line of glue, but I suggest trying to keep it as thin as possible and lining it up this way. As we move up the heart, it will curve, but that's going to look cool because it's going to look like the shape of the heart. But it's important to try to keep these middle sections here as straight as possible as you work your way out. So that's helpful. Just take your time and be patient. And that way you don't end up with a lot of messy glue. And work in small sections like you see me doing here. All right, let's speed it back up and get this side finished. At this little piece on the side of the heart, you can see how beautiful that looks. And if there's any glue strings or anything like that, you should be able to get rid of them. But for the most part, this is really neat looking. The lines stayed straight and only started to curve when I wanted them to, but I took my time. I was patient. I will say a note here before we close this up. If you are using a different color yarn, like a red or pink, I'd probably suggest painting the background, actually painting the foam heart, because here and there, if I really stared close, you can see some of the foam. It's hard to tell because the white and the off-white aren't so contrasting. But if you use a highly contrasting color, you'll want to take that into consideration. Okay, and you'll notice I never cut my yarn for this side because I would have no idea how long it would take, and I'd rather it be a continuous strand. But I now am going to go ahead and cut off some to get ready to close this up. I'll still have some extra. And you know they also make the silicone finger protectors, which are great. I'm finding that it's easier for me to kind of push this down with my finger because I have the protection of the yarn. But when I'm really wanting to press it down into the glue, that is when this is becoming handy too. So to close up the side, you'll just kind of keep going in a swirl. You'll think you can just like knock it out in one go, but I always suggest kind of just taking your time so that you can shape that yarn exactly the way you want it to lay down, because it'll look much neater that way. If you try to just swirl it really quickly and gob it and glue, you just won't get as good of results, in my opinion. So we'll do a little bit more glue, closing that up there, pressing that down as you go, really making that edge look nice and finished. Okay, now we can finish up the middle. Just make sure there's enough glue there. Try not to make it messy. And then one more little piece of yarn pressed right there in the center should make that edge close up nicely. We'll trim that off. We'll pull this back one more time. Little dot of glue. Make sure that that gets tucked in there just like that, so that it doesn't bring your attention to the fact that that is where we ended and stopped gluing. Doesn't that look so good? All right, so one half down. Let's get the other half done, and then we're going to do some sweet little embellishments on the front. To start the other side, I am going to just get started and pull some of my yarn off. Then I'm going to go right back to kind of where I started at the beginning and get started again and do the same exact wrapping process that you saw me do on this side. I love the texture of this one. It is so beautiful. This was really simple. For the embellishments, I have some stamping ink. I'm using the black Stays-On ink, a pretty little bird stamp, an acrylic block. We'll get that set up, and then some Osnaburg muslin to make a little fabric tag here. Get that on here. We're just going to take this step by step and see how these embellishments look on this project. Again, I do love it just as is, but I also love sweet little birds, especially, well, all the time. All right, let's stamp that on here. I was going to say especially at Valentine's, but think about little love birds. But during the spring, the winter, they're pretty anytime. Look how pretty. So we now have a custom fabric tag. I'm going to go ahead and trim that up, but I still want it to have the tattered edges, and I'll show you how I do that in case you've never made a fabric tag before. So I'm just kind of eyeballing the margins here. You can go check the description of this video if you want a link to these bird stamps. I'll link the exact ones that I have because I use them for pretty much all seasons. All right, so to make a little tattered edge, you would just cut and you would pull the threads, and that gives you that tattered edge there back. Okay, we've got a pretty tag, so we know we have a pretty tag to work with. Let me move this ink out of the way before I accidentally get ink on the yarn. And then I think I want to bring in some little greenery and some of that natural floral here. So I'm thinking about is just do a little couple sprigs of that and a little tag. I have a rusty safety pin as well, but I feel like it's going to need a little, just tiny bow. A strip from this scrap fabric, we're just going to tie it like a little shoestring bow, keeping it very, very simple. Yeah, okay, and then we can just use that going through the bottom of the bow to hold the tag. Okay, and so then these two are the same exact fabric, and it keeps it nice and neutral, which I love. Okay, so we'll have to do that in layers. What I can go ahead and do is I can go ahead and take this rusty safety pin, thread it through the bottom here at the same time I'm threading it through the bow. I can get it to poke through there. Okay, and I'll keep going. That's going to be pretty. Yes, yes, yes. I like that. Okay. That's going to look nice. See, with the amount of hot glue I put on this, I want to put too much. All right, so there's our first layer. And then some sprigs of this. I may have said this before, or you may have seen another video where I say embellishing is probably one of the hardest decisions to make because there are so many different things that you could do, and the decision overwhelm can get you. So I just like to lay it out and decide, and I know I can always add more if I want to. We'll put that right there, tuck that back here. And now my sweet little tag will stay there, and I feel like it still needs like a tiny little button or embellishment right here. Let me go look in my stash and see what I can find. Okay, a sweet button to the rescue. I think will look really nice there. And that brings a little bit of attention to the fact that there is a sweet and simple bow there. That final touch, our foam yarn heart is ready to display. I absolutely adore how this heart came out. I hope that you'll want to create one too. It's so cozy. I'd love for you to say hi down in the comments. Let me know you enjoyed watching, which project was your favorite. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel and turn on that bell for notifications so you'll know when a crafty episode is waiting for you to enjoy. Thank you so much for joining me today. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up if you found it helpful and inspiring. I can't wait to see you next week. Don't forget, you're amazing. You're creative. Have a blessed day. Bye-bye.